Good evening and welcome to the Death Cafe, sponsored by the Heartway. It's lovely to have you here. As you enter into the room, where are you from? Where are you calling from? Please share who you are, where you are in the world, and if you wish, what brought you to the Death Cafe. And as everybody's gathering together, grab yourself a cup of tea. This is an hour for you to have a conversation of something that's such an important part of our lives that's not often talked about too much. I always love to start with just some grounding and some gathering together of our energy and our time. So if it feels right, just go ahead and close your eyes and make your way to your breath. Just allow your breath to deepen you. Let the exhalation release that which is needing to be released. Any areas of holding, control, or tension. And just allow yourself to become present. There's no place you need to go. There's nothing you need to do. Chosen to be here this evening together, and let us join in our hearts and spirits. A couple more nice deep breaths for yourself. And I'd like to send out a metta prayer to those in Ukraine. And a metta prayer is really a prayer of loving kindness and sending our love and our support and our compassion out. May they and all beings feel safe and free from harm. May they and all beings be connected with divine wisdom and divine grace. May they and all beings feel loved and cherished and remember that they are love. And may they and all beings find peace in their hearts with love from our hearts to yours. Thank you. Beautiful. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Death Cafe. Those of you joining us for the first time, I'm just thrilled you're here. Those of you that are returning know that each cafe is kind of different. And I want to spend just a moment to introduce myself and spend a moment to share with you what a Death Cafe is for those of you that are brand new. My name is Dr. Andrea Dearhart, and I have the honor of founding an organization called the Heartway, nonprofit organization that is dedicated to serving those before, during, and after death. We provide counseling, advocacy, end-of-life care, such as death doula skills and services and competencies, and education and support for those that are working with the grief after a loved one has died. We also have an end-of-life practitioner training program, which is a death doula and beyond, that we're very excited to put out there in the world and serve. And hello, Lisa, one of our students just came online. It's lovely to see you from Long Beach. You've been in my thought and hearts. Good to have you here. So let me share with you a little bit about a Death Cafe. What is it? And it's been such an honor to facilitate cafes for the last decade, actually. And the reason why I love the Death Cafe, because it's for you. It's not about me. It's a place where you can ask your questions. It's a place where you can share your concerns. It's a place where you can listen to others sharing their thoughts, beliefs, philosophies, and experiences around death, dying, and beyond. The phrase Death Cafe itself identifies both a movement and an individual gathering like we're having tonight. And this gathering is part of the movement. The movement began in Switzerland in 2004, where a gentleman by the name of Bernard Crétez started a cafe called Café Mortel. Later, a British web designer, John Underwood, created a gathering, a Death Cafe in London in September of 2011. As of this morning, there's over 14,000 death cafes in 81 countries. So we're not alone. And I believe it has filled a felt need. I don't know about you, but where is there an opportunity to talk about death? Well, if you're at my kitchen table, yeah, but it's not often talked about. It's shunned. A lot of fear around it, as you know, and something we don't face. We live as if we're not going to die, as if we were not going to die. The cafes all over the world are offered on a nonprofit basis. It's a place to be respectful for all. It's a confidential space with no intention of leading conclusions, selling products, or any course of actions. And if we were meeting together, which I did many, many times before COVID, I'd serve you tea and chocolate. After all, if you're going to go, might as well go death by chocolate. Yes? The overall objective of the gathering is to increase awareness of death, and with a view of helping people make the most out of their life. It really is not about dying. It's about living until you take your last breath. That's really what's important. And when we face our death, when we honor it as part of life, some of our worries just melt away. And what bubbles up is what brings us the greatest meaning. This last week, we lost a dear friend very, very suddenly. And there was a shocky period for me as I was trying to make sense of this lovely man that was here and then no longer here. And what he's reminded me of is and what death does. It reminds me of the sacredness and the fragility of life. And we don't know if tomorrow's our day. So how do you want to live today? And the Death Cafe helps inspire that, I believe. I think people take part of the Death Cafe, and I'm going to be real interested in knowing what brought you here tonight, if you don't mind sharing, for so many reasons. Just some have felt need to explore, some curious, some that are grieving, some that are dying. And hopefully it feels like an open space where the subject is open. The cafe is not meant to be a grief group, really, or a lecture or educational session, or promoting any business. It's really about offering you a space to share your hearts, to ask your questions. You know this, we can't magically make death disappear from our lives. We just can't. Nor can we completely erase the sadness and other forms of distress and emotions associated with death-related issues. However, we can talk about it. We can share our insights. We can share our attitudes. We can learn from each other and strive together to cope more effectively with dying, death, and bereavement. That's a little bit of a summary of what a Death Cafe is. So I see a few people have joined us, and welcome. Please let us know where you're from in the world. And that's one of the magic of Death Cafe Live. Anybody in the world can join us and share with us what brought you here today. What's on your mind? What would be the most helpful to spend this time together? Mm-hmm. I could talk, as my students know, but it really is about you and what's concerning you. Fears, grief, curiosities. Death is one of the great mysteries, as life is a great mystery. So I know there's a lot of questions around it because it is the unknowable. I remember doing a radio show once where the host asked me, okay, we're dying to know what happens after death. And I was on the radio, but I went, because nobody really knows. We have our faith, some of us, which is beautiful and important. We have our imagination. After being with thousands of people at the end of life, I've gotten little windows into the great mystery, but we don't know. How does that land for you? How does that drop in for you? Hi, Jennifer. Welcome. So sweet. Another student is online. So I asked you, share with us what questions you have or thoughts or concerns. Whatever is on your mind is more than likely on someone else's, and it will serve you. While you're thinking and processing, I did have a process that moved through me this week working with a new client. And that was ethical dilemmas at the end of life. In fact, a couple clients that I worked with this week, this bubbled up as a concern. You know, often at the end of life, we're faced with these ethical dilemmas. Life is riddled with them, as you know. And what am I meaning here as an ethical dilemma? Well, sometimes someone that's dying is ready to die and they don't want to take medication. They're just ready to go, but the family's not ready to go. And it becomes challenging with medications. Do you force medications on someone that doesn't want to take them or someone that doesn't want to die? I was also thinking of something else, witnessing a young person that was contemplating suicide and how worrisome that was for their roommates. And the fear and the intensity of how do I save this life of someone that doesn't want their life saved? What do I control and what do I not? Do I 5150 someone? And that is where you put somebody on an involuntary hold to work through their challenges. And how do you let go? And how do you not feel responsible? The ethical dilemma here is really because life and death aren't black and white. Is there a right way to die, a right way to live? There's many ways to live, as you know. What the most important is your thought process. What brings meaning in your life? How do you want to live? How do you want to support others? And this is why advanced directives are important. And these conversations like we're having tonight about death is crucial. If we don't know what our loved ones want, then we're operating out of our own consciousness, which may be just perfect. But really at the end of life, we're wanting to serve the person that's dying. And the only way we can fully do that is to know and to understand. But there are these crucial, painful, difficult, ethical dilemmas that weave through. Even with the client today contemplating a parent that had died, he and his sister are the executor of the will, and they're not agreeing on how the funds should be executed. I do see this a lot. What's right and what's wrong, and what's important. And that's really where I guided him this afternoon. What's worth fighting for? What's the most important here? To take some time and contemplate that before you get in the dialogue. And he reported he had the dialogue with his sister and it moved much more gently. And they're navigating the things that they're feeling different on. Yeah. I tell my students as an ELP, an end-of-life practitioner, you're going to run into these ethical dilemmas all the time, even within ourselves, of supporting clients that have different religions or values. How do you support them? And for an end-of-life practitioner, it's easy and straightforward and difficult. The easy and straightforwardness is we're there to meet the clients where they're at and to support them, irregardless of what our beliefs are. That's our role as an end-of-life practitioner, to help someone live and die the way they wish. That's our goal. Not always easy. We have to do our work. That's the most important. Wondering if you have any thoughts on what I shared or other ideas or feel differently. It's a big topic. And I think the main thing, and I want to get to a couple comments, is that an ethical dilemma is just that. It's a dilemma. There is not a right and wrong answer. There's not a black and white answer. I have found over the years the most important is the contemplation of the ethical dilemma, the seeking support, having the conversations, and coming to a compromise and finding peace within yourself, however that is. Could be peace because of a connection with your higher power. It could be peace because you know from advanced directives that this is what your loved one wants, even if you're feeling differently. And then our work is grieving and letting go. I want to respond to your comments, Jennifer, and thanks for sharing. And those of you online, please feel free to add any additional comments. So you're speaking to the dark night of the soul, fearing death. It's like this fear that you talk about is going to happen. Literally, I never experienced it till recently. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, and my heart's with you in this journey, because it can be terrorizing. Many people all over the world, especially in Western culture, are very, very fearful of death. It is a natural instinct. I know you know the comment of survival of the fittest. There's a natural response, physiological response to fear. So, have you ever been startled or watched a scary movie and you jump and you feel the sensation that grabs a hold of you? It's a somatic experience, it's an emotional experience, and it's a cognitive experience. The cognitions actually are taken out in that moment of somatic response. We were born that way. It helps keep us alive too. It helps us move away from dangerous things in our life. So facing death, the fear of death, is all those layers of experience. It is part of who we are as a human being. Now, the question is, can we move through it? Can we heal in the fear? Can we move past where it takes our breath away? And the answer is yes. But it takes time and tears and processing. Okay. The other important essence to share with you is, like all emotions, it moves through us. Kind of comes in like waves, like a tsunami at times. It's what I share with people that are grieving. We know we're grieving when it's kind of a tsunami of emotions. Grief isn't just sadness. It isn't just anger. It isn't just fear. It isn't just loneliness. It's all of that, isn't it? And much more. It's a complex of emotions, and that's what makes it so difficult. And there's several tools that can support you, and I'll share some of those. I'm grateful you're sharing this topic, Jennifer, and I'm also bowing to your courage to walk in it, because it will set you free as you work through the layers of these emotions. I'm a good example of this. When I was growing up, I was terrorized of death. If you would have said to me in my early 20s, I would be an end-of-life practitioner, death doula, and spent over 35 years of my life supporting, loving, holding those at the end of life, I would have said, you're dead wrong, pun intended. There was just no way, because I was so terrorized by it. I used to hide under my covers in my pink and red Raggedy Ann room. Yes, I admit it. Pink and red room, hiding under the covers, terrorized by death. Terrorized by it. I also grew up in a very unhealthful, violent environment, and that just exponentially added to my fear. So I grew to be afraid of life and death. So, am I still fearful of death? Most of the times, no. Do I still have moments here and there? Yes. But it's not fear of dying anymore or death. It's the fear of leaving and missing those that I connect with in life. And I know that's my mind, my ego consciousness, making up a story about that. I don't think that part of consciousness lives on after we die. Many Eastern traditions share differently. But the way that we work with our fear, as all fears, correct me if I'm wrong, is facing our fears, is stepping into them, honoring them, acknowledging them, sharing them, writing about them. That all diffuses the energy that is collected from the fears. So when I was in my mid-20s, I summed up that courage and decided to face my fear of death. And I started working at a hospice as a volunteer, and my first patient died in my arms. With her, a good portion of my fear went. Well, how did that happen? It was nothing like I imagined my fear when she died. It was nothing like I imagined death was. It was sad and it was messy and she had pain. This was also in the 80s, and we've learned so much since then. And in the 80s, she died of breast cancer, and there were open wounds and things that we just don't see anymore thanks to medical advancement. But there also was an incredible calm in it. There was a peacefulness. And after she died, she looked real peaceful. And I wondered how that could be if death was scary. So she also inspired me to shift my whole life. At that point, I was in marketing business and was prepping to take an MBA to go back into the business world and teach those managers you could manage with a heart and still get your numbers. There's a hint to the heart way. And I switched gears and went and got my first master's in counseling psychology because I wanted to be a hospice social worker. I wanted to work with people at the end of life. I knew I had a lot of learning to do about life and death, and I felt peaceful serving. I felt peaceful walking by their sides at the end of life. So facing death directly like I did, holding death, and now after years about talking about it and supporting many, the fear of death has a different experience that moves through me. I think it's one of the greatest journeys we can go on in this life because we face our mortality. Life is inspired. Just as I mentioned earlier, when someone dies in your life, life feels differently, doesn't it? It's experienced differently. The texture's different about it. It's illuminated different. We know that it's going to end. We know that it's going to end. So we have this life. What you want to do with this life? How are you going to live this life? That's what death does. We can't avoid it. We can't avoid death. We just can't. So how are we going to make the most of it? How are we going to make the most of this life? And at the end of life, what appears to be the most important is love. How we love, who we love, and how we receive love. And in that, what brings meaning to your life? Death brings meaning to your life. If you weren't going to die, what would bring meaning to your life? Life challenges our timetable. challenges us to not put off what we can do today for tomorrow. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Today is. This moment is. It is scary facing death. The mind's job, the ego mind's job, is to control, is to control our existence. It's also the part of us that creates in our life. Ego gets a bad rap. I want to clean its reputation up tonight a little bit. It's an important part of our existence and achievement in dealing with the tactile part of life, the concrete part of life. There's a wonderful Arabic expression that I use a lot in my personal life and professionally because it's inspiring and it's thought-provoking. I'd love to share it with you now. And that is, yes, believe in God, believe in your spirituality, believe in that which is greater than ourselves, whatever meaning that is to you. Believe in that. You also have to tie your camels. You also are bound to this earthly existence right now. And we have our responsibilities, we have our tasks, we have wood to chop, we have food to grow, we have grocery stores to go, children to raise. Those are tying our camels. At the same time, believing in the spirit, believing in that which is bigger than ourselves. But we need both. We need both. Many cultures speak to the afterlife as being another existence, another life, beyond our understanding. Death is not understood in the mind. That's part of what gives us the fear and the challenge. Death is understood in the soul, in the heart, the eternal soul, that's which many believe live on. So Jennifer, I'm encouraging you to walk in the dark night of the soul, getting the support you need to hold your hand as you walk, and contemplate and face those fears and allow it as you work through the layers to inspire your life. And why is this up in your life right now? I'm going to guess, especially the program you're in, peeled off layers and allowed you to touch this very sweet, difficult spot within yourself. And all of it frees us to be who we are in this life. So thank you for sharing. And I ask those of you online with us, what's on your mind? What brought you to a death cafe? Questions or comments? I'm really interested in what flows through you, as this is what the cafe is for, a safe place for you to share. So any questions, I would be honored to support and process with you and share. I want to know, was that helpful, the discussion on fear? And has anybody else out there experienced fear of death too? Imagine that would be really helpful to Jennifer to hear somebody else's story, that she's not alone. I shared mine. And I do still have those moments where I can't imagine not being alive. And then I feel there's a visceral heat that moves through my body. And I know I'm in fear, but I'm comfortable with it now because I've moved there. I've moved to that place to know that's part of the journey. That's part of transformation. I did mention a little earlier about tools. What are some other tools besides facing the fear, maybe writing about it, seeking counsel to support you? I think one of the best tools for helping us work through our fear of death is actually yoga nidra. So those of you that haven't heard of yoga nidra is a beautiful ancient practice that comes from the field of yoga. It's not yoga asana, which is yoga movement. It is yoga nidra, which is a form of meditation. Let me tell you what it is and why I think it could serve so beautifully in working through fear of death. Yoga nidra is a type of conscious relaxation where you basically lie down in a comfortable space, getting your body in a completely relaxed state, and you're guided through a visualization that takes you through the body, a body scan, to release areas of control, of holding, of tension or pain. You're learning in yoga nidra how to open up the 72,000 channels of energy, and in yoga they're called nadis. And when an energy gets blocked in the body, it emulates a pain, sometimes a physical pain, sometimes an emotional pain, sometimes a spiritual pain. And yoga nidra is a tool to help move that pain, move those blockages through your body. That's one of the major benefits of it. An hour of yoga nidra is equivalent to 3 hours of sleep, which is pretty awesome. So it's a very relaxed state of being, even more so than ordinary sleep, even more so than relaxing and watching a movie or having a glass of wine and talking with some friends, which are wonderful things to be with friends and relaxing. But this is even a deeper rest. How do we know that? There's a lot of empirical data on it. And in our yoga nidra teacher training, you learn more about it, and you can go onto the website to learn a little bit more if you're interested in it. So that's one of the major benefits is a deep conscious relaxation. The body is asleep, but the mind is awake and aware. The other significant aspect of yoga nidra is that yoga nidra helps us master the world we want to live in. Yoga nidra is a state of relaxed being. It's a state of consciousness. It's not a practice. It's not a practice. We have a practice. You are doing a practice. You're being guided. But it's the state of consciousness, and that's important because there's many ways to get into the state of consciousness. But in that state of consciousness, yoga nidra, you get to visualize in a sankalpa, which is setting that intention, the world you want to live in, how you want to be, your ideal self. So for fear of death, you visualize yourself not afraid of death and what that looks like. That looks like having a relaxed presence, peaceful, not in fear, feeling complete ease within your body about death. And I think my exquisite associate put up the website, and you can go into our store and see Yoga Nidra Graceful Transitions CD that you can download. You also can go on our YouTube channel and for free listen to a whole workshop on Yoga Nidra Graceful Transitions and taking a practice. So I have found it extremely helpful personally from working through fears. So that's a wonderful, wonderful tool for Yoga Nidra because you're resetting the neurology. You're recreating neuroplasticity, or you're creating neuroplasticity, or you're changing the pathways of thought. And if you've done any research on neuroplasticity, it's quite incredible. We can heal and we can redefine our DNA. There's much more on that, but I hope that's helpful. I want to get to a couple comments. Thanks for sharing, everybody. I'm glad, Lisa, that was helpful. you've been sitting with some familiar thoughts and feelings as well. And yes, the program has set me in a place where I'm feeling more confident and less fearful of death and dying, but also has brought a whole new level of fear and questioning. For me, I know that it is part of the process and I will move through it. I would also have to say the same as you, Dr. Dearheart, in my 20s. In fact, I did when the idea first came to me. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so happy you're here as well, too. And you're spot on, Lisa. It's such a process. Life is a process, isn't it? I have this expression that we're on this journey and there's no place to arrive to. It's an ongoing journey. Death moves us into a different journey. No place to arrive to give us the freedom to be in that process, to grow, to heal, to evolve, to be enlightened. So beautiful. And I'm so helpful being part of our program is supporting you. And we love having you here in the program. Thank you so much, Lisa. And, you know, I'm thinking about the people, all of us that kind of grew up with fear of death. In the days when I grew up, nobody talked about death. Nobody talked about the fears of death. It just wasn't something that was part of the conversation. Even today, yeah, there's more conversations about death now as there's a lot of end-of-life practitioners and the right to die, and a lot of conversations in the last 2.5 years with COVID and the many people that died. A lot of conversations. We faced a lot of death. Yet, are we touching death? Are we embracing it as part of life? Our tagline is embracing life, honoring death. They're the same thing. If you're embracing life, you're absolutely honoring death. If you're honoring death, you're embracing life because they are each other. Life is death and death is life. There is no difference except for the bifurcation we put on it culturally because of our dualistic thought perspective. It's all intertwined. So many of us grew up with it not being part of the conversation. And when things are hidden, they're scary. I wasn't allowed to see my brother when he was in the hospital for an injury. And that made me so scared that it's got to be horrible and awful. It took me many years to work up the courage to go into a hospital. And it didn't matter what hospitals did. It was just a scary place. And all that inspires our fear of death. So I'm not surprised. And the beauty is at any moment in our life, we can face our fears. And fears do diminish. Fears do go away. Fears get in the way of us living in this moment. And that's where life happens, in this moment. Thank you, Lisa. Hi, Sherry. You have a family member who's dealing with depression related to cognitive difficulties. Would Yoga Nidra be a good recommendation I could give him? Without a doubt. Some of the empirical data show improvement on anxiety and depression. And like I was alluding to a little earlier, Sherry, that Yoga Nidra works with our neurology. It works with our neural pathways. And when we're depressed, let's say we have a thought process of, I have no value or I'm lonely. When we have that same feeling, that same expression, it goes down the same neural pathway and kind of etches a place where it's comfortable, right? It's our go-to. I'm worthless. I have no meaning. I'm just using that as an example. I have fear of death. And Yoga Nidra shifts the pathway into a new pathway that feels differently. It's not experienced in the same way. And we heal. We feel less sad. We feel less anxious. We feel less depressed. There's been some research with PTSD war veterans in using yoga nidra and having success in healing aspects of the PTSD, the aspects of the chronic fear and the depression and getting triggered. So we have found yoga nidra to be so successful. We also offer once a month a free online yoga nidra session through the Suzy Center. And you can find that link on our website as well. And you're welcome to join us and have your family member come and be part of that. But it has helped me with some anxiety, I have to be honest. I had a lot of anxiety of speaking, especially in front of huge crowds, because I ended up have a little bit of memory challenges here and there. And I kept visualizing myself up on a stage in front of hundreds of people. And I saw myself successful. I saw myself, which is important to me, to connect to the hearts. Yoga Facebook Live is not my favorite because I can't see you. We can't be connected. So I have to imagine your heart. But Yoga Nidra really helped me visualize myself, change that neurology to not get that visceral response when I get up there and speak. And I'm happy to say I spoke in front of hundreds of people a week or so ago in the Bahamas doing a workshop on Yoga Nidra. And I didn't have that anxiety. I was able to speak from my heart and it flowed. And I really owe it to Yoga Nidra. And what I love about it especially is it's gentle. Why it works beautifully with PTSD is they don't have to tell their story of trauma over and over again. You're lying there being guided on a visualization, and the neurology heals because of the state of consciousness. You're not thinking about your depression. You're not thinking about what's wrong. You're moving blockages that block that healing in your body. So please, I do think it might beautifully help your family member on that. Oh, thank you for sharing. Let me check in with a couple other people. We have a few minutes left, so if there's anything on your mind, please share. I really appreciate it, and I believe it helps us all because we're not alone. We all have this human experience of life and death. Yeah, we may have thousands of different experiences, but we have hundreds of similar experiences, many feelings and emotions that we feel. Oh, thank you, Lorraine. So Lorraine sharing her experience with Yoga Nidra, the physical and emotional balance of Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is almost unbelievable, beautiful. I think so too. Thank you for sharing it in that way, Lorraine. I do think it's unbelievable because it's so gentle and it circumvents our usual patterns. And that's what I mean about the neuroplasticity. And there's just an ease in the healing. There's just an ease in it. I hope you'll try it and join us. I'd love to have you be part of the program. Thanks for sharing, Lorraine. I appreciate it. So Lisa, share a little bit more about you don't know if it's solely because of the pandemic or not, but I'm still finding that people are seemingly hungry for space to discuss our impending deaths. And now they know that they can safely turn to me for that dialogue. That's beautiful. I'm glad people are reaching out to you, Lisa, as you're studying becoming an end-of-life practitioner. And you brought in something crucial for us all, and something every single person in the world experienced, and that was the pandemic. And the pandemic for sure pulled the rug out underneath us. The pandemic absolutely inspired our fears of death, absolutely made us face our mortality. Can you remember at the beginning of the pandemic when we didn't know very much at all, but we were told how deadly COVID was. We were told how scary it was. And then we were thrown into seclusion. Our life stopped in that moment as we knew it. Many, many things changed in our life, right? Our work, many of us lost loved ones that died to COVID. Many of our loved ones that were in the hospital dying of COVID, we couldn't see or say goodbye. And we were all fearful, was COVID going to get us? Would we die from COVID? How do we protect ourselves? So for many, it brought the fear of death to the forefront. And that has stayed with many of us. And I'm appreciative that it brought it to the forefront to give us just that opportunity, Lisa, to talk about it. When we talk about death, we live absolutely fuller. It dissipates that fear, it diffuses it, puts that pin in the balloon. It's that pink elephant in the room. It's taking up the space. And when you talk about the pink elephant, it turns into a little squeaky bath toy. It just does. Don't you find that true with other areas in your life? So I think you're spot on, Lisa. The pandemic absolutely has inspired our fear of death, has created more conversations about it. I hope and pray inspired families to talk about it and plan for it. It is the greatest gift you will give your family members by talking about death and sharing what your wishes are and managing your material life. My dear friend that died suddenly didn't have his will done. It's okay. However, it puts everything in probate. It puts more stress on the family as they're trying to figure out what he would have wanted with his material life. What were his wishes for burial? It puts a lot of pressure on our loved ones. So it's one of the best legacies, I think, in my heart, you can leave your loved ones. And I think the pandemic nurtured those conversations. They're hard. I think my students that are online will agree. They had to take a document we created called My Life, My Death. It's a document that gets attached to your advanced directives with a whole bunch of beautiful, important information, including a place to put your advanced directives, your passports, your will, your financial information, how you wish to die, how you wish to bury, who you want to take care of the kids or the animals, all of those in one document. And the student said to me, nobody wants to fill this out. They're stalling and they had a deadline. So they were under a lot of pressure, bless their hearts. And why were they stalling is the question. Why didn't they want to do these documents? It wasn't hard. It took a little time, but it's because it was so scary to face their mortality. When you fill out an advance directive, when you fill out your paperwork for end of life, you're admitting in some way that you're going to die. And we haven't culturally wanted to go there. But when we face our death, when we face our mortality, when we take care of the business of our life, do you know what happens to life? It's more radiant. We live fuller. It's a freedom. It's kind of like when I finished writing my second textbook for the end of life practitioner. It was an incredible, surreal feeling and a freedom. If I did it, I have something to offer now. So doing these advanced directives are crucial. And they absolutely, I promise, allow you to enjoy life that much more fuller. Death is the greatest leveler. Death is the greatest fear. Yeah. Thank you. How do you feel about that? You're welcome, Sherry. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate it. And Sherry writes, your guidance is greatly appreciated. And, that's my dream and fantasy, is just to walk by your sides. You don't need this. You've got this. And that's one of the most important things to me. I say my goal is to work myself out of a job. Not that because I don't love what I do, and I'm so, so, so grateful, but because we have the ability to love our loved ones through at the end of life. We have the ability and the natural instinct to face our deaths since the beginning of time. But since the Industrial Revolution, since the end of life environment changed and we were removed from burying our own loved ones, we got further and further and further away from our natural death instinct, further and further and further away from our relationship to life and death, further and further and further away from nature. And nature teaches us about life and about death. So my heart is about supporting all of you in connecting with your true nature. Your true nature is beyond this experience. Your true nature of your soul. Your true nature as a living being that was born, wrote a contract that they were going to die and is going to die. That's part of our nature. Part of our nature is to be joyous, peaceful, compassionate, and filled with light. Our mind sometimes adds layers on top of it, but that's our true nature. All we have is this moment we're sharing. The rest we create. The rest we make up. The past is the past. The future is the future. The present is our life and our living. Our life is made up of moments of present living. So you say, well, what does death have to do with this? Everything. Death has everything to do with it. Now, please know I'm not saying every day you have to talk about death. Every day, everyone you meet, you got to talk about death. But we need to find the peaceful place in our heart about it. This also doesn't mean when someone dies, we're not sad. We love deeply. If you love, you grieve. End of story. It's one of the many facets of love, grief. You love, you grieve. We also can celebrate death. We also can celebrate the incredible lives that our loved ones have had. And who's to say, tell me, who's to say where we're going isn't magnificent, isn't beyond what we experience here? We don't truly know. We have our teachings that help us and our beliefs that help us. But why do we think it's scarier? Why do we think it may not be so good? Why is it so hard? I think about that a lot. I don't necessarily have the answer to it. But we just don't know. One of the reasons the fear comes up, because it's the unknown. There isn't a guarantee in it. We don't know what that is. We know what guarantees we have in this life, right? And that's what we're going to die. We've got to pay taxes. That's it. But it's so unknown. And that's what invokes our fear. It invokes our fear. Yeah. Wow, this has been beautiful topics. We just have a couple more minutes. I just want to check in if there's any last minute thing that you want to share. And I so appreciate you being here. And from the bottom of my heart, I hope this has been supportive to you. Please reach out if you have any other questions. We've got a beautiful page on Facebook and Instagram, and you go to our website, and we're here to serve. We're a nonprofit, and we've chosen not to charge for end-of-life services. So Please don't be shy in reaching out if we can be of support in any way. I want to end this evening with a beautiful poem, and we posted it. It's on the Facebook page if you're interested in it and can look at it even deeper. So if it feels right, go ahead and let your eyelids close and take this in. And I think it's a perfect poem to end our evening with based on what we shared this evening. And it's called When Death Comes. I want to step through the door full of curiosity and wondering. What is it going to be like? The cottage of darkness. And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field of daisy, and as singular, and in each name, a comfortable music in my mouth, ending, as all music does, towards silence. In each body, a lion of courage, and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I want to end up simply having visited this world. That was written by Mary Oliver. I think it's a beautiful contemplation, and I hope that it touches your heart. Please be safe, be love, and be you. From my heart to yours.